Hello and welcome back to my humble show. I just have a few thoughts to share with you in regards to the Senate's foreign border bill. My basic breakdown would be something like this. Beginning with the belief that most politicians are either outright bad, have bad ideas, or are willing to make good decisions for bad reasons, my expectations are low, and I therefore must consider whether a mostly bad bill will be better or worse than no bill at all. And of course, both long-term and short-term outcomes must matter in this process of assessment. What's especially unfortunate is the fact that the politicians involved often invest more into the politics of the policy than they invest into the policy itself, meaning that a crisis on the scale of the border crisis is met primarily with pandering and projection. Thus, I realize that just as there are Democrats who will propose a so-called solution in order to pretend that it was Republicans who created the problem, there are also Republicans who will oppose the so-called solution and prevent the problem from being solved solely so that they can continue having a problem to blame on Democrats. Because I understand that most of these particular politicians are partisan hacks, I try my best not to be a partisan hack. However, having an open mind doesn't necessarily make it any easier to determine who and or what will actually help in closing the border. In regards to Joe Biden, it's easy to see that he has little to no interest in closing, or shall I say, securing the border, aside from re-election strategizing and such. If he did, he would go right ahead and take steps to secure it, just as he took steps to unsecure it the moment he came into office, contrary to his administration's claims of day one immigration reform. Biden's "give me the power" rhetoric is indicative only of his desire to create and control the narrative that it's only Republicans who are preventing the securing of the very border which his administration spent nearly 3 years claiming was secure. In an extra nutty nutshell, the White House has argued 1. That they implemented immigration reform, but also that the system is still broken. 2. That the border is secure, but also that Republicans are getting in the way of it being secured. 3. That it isn't a crisis, but also that it's an emergency. 4. That Biden is responsible whenever illegal entries decrease, but also that he's not responsible whenever they increase. 5. That the Trump administration was racist for sending them back to where they came from, but also that it's an accomplishment if the Biden administration sends back a record number of illegal border crossers, as though the number allowed to cross the border isn't even more record-breaking. In other words, it's a never-ending spin cycle, and every load of you-know-what by the Biden administration is intended to positively portray the Biden administration. After all, that's how these things work. With all of that being said, Republicans are now in a tricky position, because after months and even years of shouting, "Do something!" at Biden, he, with the flip of an ill-equipped script, gets to pretend on the eve of an election in which the southern border is the trending topic, that the Republicans are the reason for the problem, simply because they're pushing back against a politically driven policy which might not even truly solve the problem. I sympathize with the likes of Senator James Lankford to a certain extent, because he's supposed to both work with Democrats and also not work with Democrats. He's supposed to both be willing to compromise and also not compromise. According to the current congressional power structure, if Lankford doesn't give Democrats nearly everything they want, then the other Republicans don't get anything they want. But if Democrats get what they want, then the other Republicans don't want anything to do with it. And Lankford is seen as some sort of sellout for defending his compromises, justifiably or not. As a side note, although Donald Trump may have a massive say when Republicans block legislation. He will likely have difficulty passing legislation if and when he takes office, since he will have the McCarthy effect, where he's popular enough to have the support of most Republicans, but disliked enough by enough of them to prevent him from getting his way on certain things yet again. But have no fear, for he will cave on many of those things yet again. Back to Joe Biden. A lot is riding on whether or not voters will go along with the sudden and nonsensical notion that he is the one who is running on securing the border. And the GOP is apparently more than willing to give him every opportunity to make that pathetic yet potentially productive pitch. I mean, assuming the border bill won't pass, short of us funding everyone else's border along with ours, guaranteeing a pathway to a certain amount of future illegal entries, and granting Biden even more discretion on following federal border laws than he already exercises. If illegal border crossings continue to increase, Biden will continue to claim that it's because Republicans wouldn't give him the power to secure the border. But if the numbers decrease, he'll instead claim that it's because of the steps he took to secure the border. You see, House Republicans passed a border bill, H.R. 2, nearly a year ago, knowing that it would never get anywhere. And although it's at least a semi-strong talking point, people are prisoners of the moment, and the party in power, Democrats, would have us believe that blocking a border bill is a bad decision only now that Republicans are blocking one. I support the GOP's efforts to control this narrative only until that effort becomes counterfeit or counterproductive. In summary, seeing as how the politics of it all have so clouded the policy behind it all, I've instead focused on the philosophy of it all. It's election season, and our elected leaders are all vying for votes. So are our unelected leaders. As far as I know, on the Senate's self-destructing border bill, it's a mostly bad bill, but I can't say for sure whether it would be better than no bill at all. So let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Feel free to disagree with me. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that every politician is a bad person, but I'll never advise anyone to trust a politician. Personally, I expect the worst, even when hoping for the best. That's what I've got. I did my best. Now you can do the rest. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep in touch. Keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace.